In 1914, Europe was divided into two rival alliance systems. The Triple Alliance, linking Germany with Austria, Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente formed by United Kingdom, France, and Russia, united by fear and many speculations regarding the military development of Nazi Germany. A spark which set Europe alight was the assassination of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand by a Serb nationalist on 28th of June 1914. As declarations of war cascaded one after another, the stage was set for what we now know as World War I. The initial spark came when Austria cast blame upon Serbia, prompting Serbia to seek Russia's support. In a chain reaction of alliances, Germany declared war on Russia to back Austria and on France due to its alliance with Russia. Meanwhile, Britain entered the fray against Germany, driven by a commitment to support Belgium and France, and also turned against Turkey for its alliance with Germany. Although Britain's declaration of war against Germany in August 1914 marked a formal commencement of hostilities, the seeds of conflict had been sown much earlier. Germany harbored resentment towards Britain's dominion over the seas and global markets. Conversely, Britain grew increasingly wary of a Europe under the sway of a potent and belligerent Germany, viewing it as a menace that had to be curbed. This backdrop of escalating tensions and intertwined alliances set the world on a path to widespread warfare. In the early dawn of September 6, 1914, just 30 miles from the heart of Paris, the quiet of the French countryside was shattered. The French 6th Army, under the command of General Michel-Joseph Manoury, sprang into action, launching an audacious assault on the German army's right flank. This bold maneuver marked the beginning of the First Battle of the Marne, a pivotal clash that would steer the course of the Great War. The German forces, having surged through neutral Belgium, were on the cusp of reaching Paris after a series of crushing victories over the French armies in the battles of the frontiers. Amid this dire backdrop, the French government, fraught with anxiety, appointed the venerable General Joseph Simon Gallieni, age 65, as the military governor of Paris. Gallieni, sensing the German juggernaut inching closer by the day, was not one to watch passively from the sidelines. He foresaw their arrival by September 5th and knew that action was imperative. In a stroke of strategic genius, Gallieni managed to persuade the French commander-in-chief, Joseph Joffre, to allocate him a force, Manoury's 6th Army, to mount a vigorous defense of the capital. Meanwhile, the German 1st Army's commander, Alexander von Kluck, defiantly veered from his superior's orders, focusing on the pursuit of the French 5th Army instead of safeguarding his flank from a potential French onslaught from Paris. As Kluck's forces boldly crossed the Marne River on September 3rd, Gallieni seized the moment. Armed with intelligence of Kluck's audacious move, he orchestrated an assault on the German flank, convincing Joffre to kickstart a broader French offensive sooner than planned. With the first light of September 6th, the soldiers of Manoury's 6th Army launched their attack, creating a gaping 30-mile breach between the German 1st and 2nd Armies. This split was the Allies' golden opportunity. The French 5th Army, under new leadership, and alongside divisions of the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, plunged into the void, targeting the German 2nd Army. The ensuing conflict was fierce. Manoury's forces, although weary, managed to hold their ground, bolstered on September 7th by a corps of reinforcements, remarkably transported from Paris in a fleet of taxicabs. This move, emblematic of the French resolve, played a crucial part in the battle's dynamics. As the French 5th Army, under General Louis Franchet d'Espèrey, launched a surprise offensive against the German 2nd Army, the German command was forced into a retreat on September 9th. The Allies' gradual pushback against the Germans towards the Aisne River heralded the beginning of a prolonged stalemate that would endure until 1918. The Battle of the Marne emerged not just as a monumental confrontation, but as a turning point that foiled Germany's grand strategy, the Schlieffen Plan, and dispelled any lingering hopes of a swift conclusion to the war. both sides found themselves ensnared in a conflict of unforeseen scale and duration, a trap sprung from battles that, in their first 30 days, shifted the trajectory of the Great War irrevocably. In this day in 1914, Great Britain and France declared war on the Ottoman Empire, which had a few days earlier joined the Central Powers and gone to war with Russia. The British formally annexed the island of Cyprus, which they had held as a protectorate since 1878, and began moves to eradicate the last formal links between Egypt and the Ottomans. The Cyprus matter is a reminder of how much great power alignments had changed in the previous 4 decades. In 1878, in exchange for British agreement to protect the Ottoman Empire from defeat in the Russo-Turkish War and in the negotiations at the Congress of Berlin. But by 1914, Britain and Russia were on the same side in the new war, and the Committee of Union and Progress were throwing in their lot with the Germans and Austrians. As part of its declaration of war against the Ottomans and the British, ended the protectorate status of Cyprus and annexed the island to their empire. Forces at Ypres. In early April 1915, a pivotal moment unfolded on the Ypres front during World War I. The Allied forces, led by the British Second Army and French divisions, faced the German Fourth Army. The Belgians also held a significant position. Alarming intelligence reached the Allies about the Germans' plan to use a new weapon, poisonous gas near Langemarck. The Germans aimed to create a gap in the Ypres salient, facilitating subsequent attacks and ultimately securing a bridgehead across the Yser Canal. This strategy was designed to divert attention from their movements in the east and reduce the Allies' salient at Ypres. Despite a timely warning, the Allies were not informed about the intended use of gas. The Germans initiated their offensive, detonating a mine at Saint-Éloi and launching preparatory bombardments on Ypres. The unsuspecting Allies, preoccupied with activities in other sectors, failed to anticipate the imminent danger. As the Germans prepared to strike, capturing important technology and making strategic moves, the stage was set for a significant battle with far-reaching consequences. The narrative unfolds against the backdrop of a changing landscape where the Allies, though forewarned, were caught off guard by the innovative and deadly tactics employed by the German forces. The German gas attack. At 5 p.m. on April 22nd, a haunting greenish-yellow haze emerged from the German trenches near Langemarck. French troops were seen retreating through a barrage of high explosive and gas shells, signaling a breach in the left line. The disaster, however, wasn't immediately comprehended. The German 43 and Aiguillesec, the Reserve Corps, had launched an attack, deploying nearly 200 tons of chlorine gas, catching the French off guard. By 8 p.m., there were no organized French troops east of the canal, leaving the left flank of the 1st Canadian Division exposed. Despite the Belgian and Canadian defenses holding firm, the gates to Ypres were open, yet no German troops were ready to exploit this vulnerability. Conditions to the left of the Canadian front were challenging, but Algerian forces, though affected by gas, held a position near the road between Ypres and Poel-Capelle. Reinforced by Canadians, they formed an effective flank. Further south, the 13th Battalion faced heavy losses countering German attempts to penetrate behind the trench line. The 10th Canadian Field Battery played a pivotal role, halting the German advance with strategic fire. The Canadian counterattack. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos on April 22nd, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Brigade geared up for a counterattack with the objective of capturing the Bois des Cuisinières, located about 1,000 yards west of Saint-Julien. Just before midnight, the 10th and 16th Canadian Reserve Battalions initiated their advance. Approximately 300 yards from the German trench, guarding the southern approach to the wood, the defenders detected movement, prompting flares, rifle fire, and a determined charge by the Canadian battalions. Successfully sweeping over the trench, they proceeded through the wood, reclaiming the 4 guns of the 2nd London Heavy Battery. Although the counterattack achieved remarkable success, German machine guns at the southwest corner of the wood still controlled the southern approaches. Before daylight, the Canadian line was retracted to the captured trench south and east of the wood. The 16th Battalion extended towards St. Julien, holding the left and patrolling the wood, while the 10th maintained the flank. By 3 a.m. on April 23rd, conditions improved with the arrival of the bulk of the Canadian 7th Battalion. They established a north-south line, with the left flank connecting with the St. Julien garrison and the right bending back from the old front line. The narrative unfolds, highlighting the ebb and flow of this intense and critical phase of the battle. Results of the battle. As night fell on April 23rd, the frontline position saw little change from the morning's layout. German attempts to widen the breach and cross the canal in front of the Belgians had been unsuccessful. The right flank of the Belgian 6th Division remained intact, although the Germans had slightly expanded their captured ground west of the canal opposite the French. On the British front, morning counterattacks had allowed for the reinforcement of the exposed Canadian left flank. Except for a gap of about 1,000 yards north of St. Julien, a solid defensive line now stretched from the original Canadian left to the canal. Despite this improvement, the situation in the salient remained dire. The French needed to reclaim ground on the left to avoid a substantial withdrawal. If unsuccessful, converging German attacks could jeopardize the apex before a withdrawal could be executed. The unfolding events underscored the precarious nature of the front line and the strategic importance of the ongoing battles in the Ypres sector. Germany breaks naval rules. Days before Lusitania was scheduled to leave New York for Liverpool in early May 1915, the Imperial German Embassy in Washington, D.C. placed ads in American newspapers reminding Americans that Britain and Germany were at war. They warned potential travelers that vessels flying the flag of Great Britain or of any of her allies are liable to destruction and should be avoided. Since it was assumed Germany would still allow passengers to get into lifeboats prior to an attack, the cautions were largely ignored. On May 7, 1915, 6 days after leaving New York for Liverpool, Lusitania took a direct hit from a German U-boat submarine without any warning and sank within 20 minutes. Attack triggers anti-German sentiment in America. As word spread about Lusitania's tragic fate, so did the outrage. American citizens were saddened and stunned, but not ready to rush to war. President Wilson wanted to proceed with caution and remain neutral, while former President Theodore Roosevelt demanded swift retaliation. Germany defended its aggression, claiming Lusitania had carried weapons and war supplies and was therefore fair game. As they continued to divert blame, British propaganda against them snowballed. Throngs of vengeance-seeking Brits rushed to enlist, and anti-German riots broke out in London. Battle of Verdun, the longest, bloodiest, and most ferocious battles of the war. In the midst of World War I, the Battle of Verdun unfolded as a protracted and brutal conflict, lasting from February 21st to December 18, 1916. The German strategy, conceived by Erich von Falkenhayn, aimed to bleed France to death by selecting Verdun as the focal point. This fortress, with its symbolic importance, posed a threat to German communication lines and stood as a salient in French defenses. The Germans initiated a massive bombardment on February 21st, targeting a 25-mile front. The initial days witnessed significant gains for the Germans, including the capture of Fort Douaumont. However, French resistance, under the leadership of General Philippe Pétain, stiffened. The French deployed fresh troops, and the battle raged on both banks of the Meuse River. While Verdun hung in the balance, the Germans faced challenges elsewhere, particularly on the Eastern Front. The Russian offensive forced Germany to divert attention, and Verdun became a prolonged struggle rather than a swift victory. The Battle of the Somme, initiated by the Allies, further complicated German efforts. The Germans persisted with tenacity, capturing key positions like Douaumont village. However, the French, determined to hold Verdun, gradually regained ground. The battle reached a climax in June, with Germans attacking Vaux and Thiaumont. Although they made gains, Verdun did not fall. The French, buoyed by successes in October, recaptured Douaumont and Vaux. As winter approached, both sides rotated commanders, and the battlefield witnessed continued but inconclusive fighting. The Battle of Verdun ultimately concluded in December 1916. General Charles Mangin proposed a successful offensive, leading to the liberation of the Verdun region. The toll was immense, with over 700,000 casualties and significant landscape devastation. The legacy of Verdun extended beyond the war. The Zone Rouge, marked by unexploded ordnance, prohibited development due to the ongoing danger. Today, bomb-clearing units work tirelessly, uncovering remnants of a conflict that left an indelible mark on history. May 31st, 1916. The Battle of Jutland, spanning from May 31st to June 1st, 1916, unfolded as the largest naval confrontation of the First World War, marking the only occasion when the British and German fleets of dreadnought battleships engaged in direct combat. With aspirations to weaken the Royal Navy, the German High Seas Fleet devised a plan to ambush the British Grand Fleet in the North Sea. Admiral Reinhard Scheer aimed to entice both Admiral Sir David Beatty's battlecruiser force and Admiral Sir John Jellicoe's Grand Fleet into battle. Anticipating a preemptive strike, the British, alerted by code breakers, set both forces to sea ahead of schedule. The Battle of Jutland unfolded in a chaotic and bloody manner, involving 250 ships and around 100,000 men. Initial clashes between Beatty's force and the German High Seas Fleet resulted in the loss of several ships. The Germans inflicted damage upon Beatty's flagship, HMS Lion, and sank HMS Indefatigable and HMS Queen Mary, both succumbing to explosions triggered by German shells striking their ammunition magazines. In response, Beatty withdrew until Jellicoe's main fleet arrived. Faced with superior firepower, the Germans turned back for home. The British suffered the loss of 14 ships and over 6,000 men, but were swiftly prepared for action the following day. The Germans, having lost 11 ships and over 2,500 men, evaded total destruction, but never posed a significant challenge to British control of the North Sea again. While the Battle of Jutland fell short of delivering the decisive victory sought by both sides, it unequivocally affirmed British naval dominance. This victory secured control over vital shipping lanes, enabling Britain to maintain the effective implementation of the maritime blockade, a strategic element contributing to Germany's eventual defeat in 1918. If you enjoyed this video about World War I, don't forget to subscribe. And additionally, if you want to support the channel and explore various topics related to the past and the unknown, feel free to do so.